example. But when we step it up to Gandhi, people probably think, well, you know, I'm not as capable as Gandhi. But yes, these smaller soul groups function within a conglomerate of soul groups, and they take on tasks to help the planet.
Okay, okay.
Like
I think I understand now.
doing a better job of, you know, to use an example, since we're here in Oregon, to be sure that stands of trees that are logged are replanted, to care for the earth, to save the erosion. So that conglomerate soul group takes on some task like that that's a bigger,
and you can see it nowadays on the internet. I mean, I'm always signing petitions. You know, there are people that want to take care of the animals, people that want to take care of the earth.
That's right.
Yeah, and I actually think that's wonderful. So when we're between lives, we are getting some education, we are preparing for the new life, and do we help decide who our parents are going to be and what our situation is going to be?
So we plan our lives. In between our lives, we plan the upcoming life. Now, a misnomer that I always like to blow holes in is a lot of people believe that in the spiritual realm, it's a timeless place. Many people will say, well, if past, present, and future are all happening at once in the spiritual realm, then why do we need to worry about what we're doing, where we're going, what happened before, and what comes after? I would suggest to listeners that it's absolutely not true, that the spiritual realm operates on the same time frame as we do. That's how our guides guide us. So they guide us to do our work now in body, not for some frivolous purpose. So the spiritual realm basically exists in the same time perspective as we do.
Now when we leave our body and we go between lives, is there somebody there to, I've read books and sometimes there's somebody to greet you, somebody to help you, and other times I'm not sure if there's somebody there, and who decides who's going to be there to meet you?
Yes.
And I got another question after that, but
okay, that's
that
fine.
one first.
That's fine. The bottom line with what you're asking, Pauline, is that if we need a greeter to greet us and guide us, we have that. If we don't need it, we don't have that.
Maybe we're more highly evolved and we just know where to go.
That is right. That is totally right. Or sometimes a soul comes to meet us because we just needed to reconnect with them. They're usually a soul in our soul group. Sometimes they're a loved one on the other side. That we just need that not because we can't travel onward into the time between lives without it, but there's some reason to reconnect with a particular guide or a particular soul.
Now, what about people that, like men in war they're thrust out of their bodies violently, or somebody was murdered, or a car accident? That would be one group. And then, of course, we have the suicides. I'm sure that's even another group. Are they treated differently? Do they? When I was reading Michael Newton, I think I remember him saying they have to go and rest somewhere, especially a suicide has to go and rest. Maybe somebody who's thrust out of their body so quickly, they need some kind of preparation to realize they've crossed over. And then we've got the spirits that don't realize they've crossed over yet, and they're still stuck in between, right?
Right. So, again, it depends. Some more experienced souls, whether it's suicide or, you know, murder or battlefield, they just travel onward and they're done with that life. In other words, they may have planned that circumstance.
I understand.
And at times, suicide is planned.
Really? No,
not always.
That's new.
Certainly not always.
I'm not saying I don't believe you, but I've never heard that before.
I've heard it, you know, the whole spectrum. I've heard with clients, unplanned, guides don't prefer it. That soul needs to learn how not to do that. It's not that that soul's not let into the spiritual realm, but I've also learned from far more than one client that at times it is a planned circumstance for the learning of somebody else.
That's what I was going to say. It wouldn't be for the person killing themselves. So could you give me a little example?
Yeah, there's a client that I write about in my first book. Adult woman, very capable woman, university professor. Throughout her life, she had struggled with feelings of suicide. She had never, you know, obviously she's my client, so she's not, you know, acted on it to the point that she would die. Her father in current life died when she was 12. When I guided her into between lives regression, we went to a past life where she ended that past life through suicide. And her guides came forward when that life was over and said, your father, now believe it or not, Your father agreed to suicide when you were 12 in your current life because you needed to experience what it feels like to be a family member or someone suicides. And we don't prefer you do that. Your father agreed to do it.
He did it so she could.
And that helped her release these thoughts and fears that she would take her own life in current life.
And I read too, when you do your past or your between life regression, you tend to work with more highly evolved souls. I know that Michael Newton worked with all levels of souls. Why do you prefer to work with more highly evolved souls?
I wouldn't say that I prefer to work with more highly evolved souls. My sense is I work with souls from about between a 5 and a 10 on a scale of evolution.
Oh, does it just happen that way?
Yeah, I think part of it is I think my guides have brought a lot of more evolved than average, if you can put it that way, souls that are more evolved than average into my practice because they felt that I needed to learn in order to teach what I would learn.
And how do you know how a soul is more highly evolved? How would you know?
So, that's a long explanation,
okay.
But I'll give you the short version.
Okay.
Because again, in a 5-day Between Lives training, we talk a lot about that. So when your client comes in, there are ways that you begin to gather inside of yourself as the therapist information that helps you to begin, I call it hunching. So I keep all those hunches tucked in my brain and keep myself silent about that. But one of the ways we learn about soul evolution is during the time between lives, the regression therapist learns how to ask about perceived color of the soul energy of the client. Now, we're not talking about aura, and people get that confused.
Yeah,
The aura is about your body or my body, what our aura is. This is about core soul energy that shows up as a color that connotes frequency, and frequency connotes level of evolution.
Energy thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I asked you, we're going to just about wrap up. I know you're going to do a workshop here pretty quickly, but we talked about why a person would come to you for a past life. Now, why would somebody come to you to know what goes on in between lives?
They have many of the clients come in with lots of questions. Why do I have this health issue? Why did I have a child die at age 2?
And this would be between life answers?
Why have I always wanted to live in Scotland, but I'm an American and I live in Wyoming?
We'll have to come to you and ask you why I always want to live in Germany. I was born in Wales and I'm American.
Exactly. What's my life purpose? That is the most common question. Why am I in body? Who are my guides? How can I connect with them? So between lives regression, we might say a soul level regression, meaning we can ask anything about ourselves as a soul. The guides will always, the client's guides will always have an agenda. Their agenda is benevolent, not malevolent, and I want people to hear that loud and clear. Regression
is not evilness. Yeah.
Yes, regression work is not about evil, it's not about dark energy, but our guides want to help us to progress. So besides showing us past lives that will help us to progress, between lives regression means our guides are going to do everything they can to give us information so that we can move along what I call our soul trajectory in current life.
You know, ending on that note, I want to say that I think if everybody came on this planet and knew their purpose, it would just raise the energy of the planet and be, I mean, you're happy when you know why you're here. I think a lot of the problem why people aren't happy, why there are wars, besides feeling there's not enough abundance, is that we don't know why we're here. So I wish that we get rid of that amnesia or go to people like you to help guide us to while we're here.
Or look at, just make this brief comment, or look at our passions. It's in what we're passionate about that we find our life purpose. So what do we love? And if it's being, a very doting, effective grandparent, that's probably part of your life purpose. If it's in, loving to teach about this and write about it, and that's part of my life purpose.
And it doesn't always have to be a monetary compensation.
That's right.
It's a feel-good compensation.
That's right.
So I want to end on a positive note, and you just ended on a positive note. Linda, I wish you lived here so I could talk to you more. Let me know when you're coming back to New Renaissance.
I will definitely do that.
Thank you so much.
Oh,
it's been so much
you.
fun talking to you. I think I covered most of my questions, but since you have to do a workshop, I'm going to end it.
Okay.
And say thank you for watching Pauline Interviews.